If you thought the Squid Games were twisted, wait until you look at the man running them. Hwang In-ho, better known as the Frontman, wasn't a contestant. He didn't play the game. He managed it. He is always in suits and with his mask and walks cool. He wasn't fighting to survive. He was making sure others didn't. And if this ever went to trial, the charges would stack up fast. He is the cause of basically everything. So let's get into his first crime. 455 people are being recruited under really questionable circumstances. It's not precisely what you would call a solid business plan. In a free rides vehicle, his victims get straight up gassed into unconsciousness.
무궁화 꽃이 게임하는 데까지는 여기서.
Imagine getting in and believing you're going home, only to wake up in a new room with hundreds of strangers around you, all wearing similar pajamas. Not only is that unsettling, it is outright abduction on a grand scale. I mean, you can literally multiply it by 455. Now, here's the real kicker. This wasn't just one kidnapping multiplied by 455. A whole system was in place. Officers in charge of recruitment? Check. Monitoring? Check. The organization was run like a Fortune 500 company, but the product was human lives. And let's not forget about the competitors themselves. They deliberately targeted those who had little to lose or were in debt. Taking advantage of the weak for one's own benefit? That's unethical at best and criminally predatory at worst. This human trafficking, with all the back-end research from full-on stalking to drugging them in a van, would get you around 25 years in prison per contestant. And as they did this to 455 players, Mr. Front starts off with a whopping 11,375 years in prison. And if you thought that was crazy, well, I hate to say this, but this is only the tip of the iceberg. We now move on to red light, green light, the first time around.
Yeah.
On paper, it's a classic from childhood. You move when the giant nightmare doll isn't looking. And if it turns around and you move, you're out. The sad part is, however, this robo-chick is a hyper-AI targeting drone dressed up as an underage girl who signals information to a giant team of snipers. So, the penalty for disobeying the rules? Instant death. Just whack, no cautions, no second chances. All of a sudden, it wasn't as much of a game anymore, and you can probably guess what happened. A massive panic. After a fun day at school, 255 of the 456 competitors failed to make it past the finish line. So in what is probably only 1 hour of playtime, 255 murders would be added to the list. And talking about murders, let's get that kill count involved. But as these Squid Games take place in Korea, we do have to dive into the law book. In South Korea, death row does exist, but for some reason they just never execute the people who actually are on death row. So we might want to use a life sentence for every single death. And while we are on the topic of talking about being in South Korea, this brings us to our next crime on this way too long list. All guards are equipped with heavy weaponry. And in the red light, green light game, snipers were having a field day with all the moving targets to practice on. However, we are not in the Wild West with a Weapons and Ammunition Act. Having a firearm in Korea gets you 10 years behind bars, and in most cases a fine of up to 10 million won, which would be around $7,000. This made me wonder, how many weapons have been illegally imported? Well, to answer that, we are gonna have to do some counting. My estimate would be there is at least one gun per guard present. So how many guards are there? Luckily, some folks on Reddit counted this, saves me some time, so shout out to you. For the squares, there is a total of 36 in the control room and 6 in surveillance, which brings us to 42. For the Doritos, there are 38 guards. And finally, the Circle Gang consists of 382 members, which brings it to a total of 462 guards. And you know what that means. That would be another 4,620 years and 4.6 billion Korean won added to the sentence. With that much debt, the Frontman might as well join a Squid Game too. But he would never do something that crazy, right? Right? Anyway, murdering people is for lousy amateurs. Why would you stop there? Because we now move on to the next crime. You may be thinking, all right, so they've killed 255 people. They will undoubtedly stop and reflect for a while. Not at all. Rather, they got to work disposing of the bodies right away. Like they were cleaning up after a large BBQ, they had industrial-sized incinerators equipped and ready to go. And the rest of the competitors who made it through, they were forced to watch in order to show how pointless their lives were. Tampering with evidence? Check. Mishandling of human remains? Double check. It's a logistical nightmare and a moral injustice. That will be another year per coffin. And spoiler alert, as out of the 456, only one player survives and one decided to retire. Let's just add 454 years right away. The game continues, and thus more childhood memories will be turned into a nightmare. Each one was created with the goal of killing as many people as possible in ever more inventive methods. About a dozen people died as a result of not being able to cut out a cookie shape. And once the 10-minute time limit was up, I'll just take a look. These cookies ended up taking 93 more lives from the contestants. So that's another 93 lives added to the sentence and the kill count. One of these contestants decided he was not going out with a bang, so he took one of the guards hostage. The guard had to do a face reveal, and all of a sudden the front man himself came out of his chair and shot the guard like it was nothing. But that's not just another murder. As this evidence shows, the following words spoken.
우리가 누군지 알게 되면 죽는다.
This basically means everyone is forced to wear sweaty masks, and if they don't, they die. That's a criminal threat towards every single guard hired and adds 1386 years. Then we had the tug-of-war game, which cut the contestant group in half. Then he facilitated a murder party at night. You can make the argument he didn't do the killing himself, but he would have killed them anyway eventually. There was a certain indictment with a doctor who tried to make some money by selling organs. The frontman didn't like that though. Let's not forget about the betrayal of Century at the Marble game. Rest in peace, Ali. Which brings us to the Glass Bridge game.
참가자 여러분을 환영합니다. 한 쌍의 유리는 두 가지 유리에도 버틸 수 있을 만큼 튼튼한 앞에 놓인 한 쌍의 유리 중에 그것들을 받고.
The outcome? There were more broken glass pieces than in a Greek wedding, and far more lives lost. And then Sang-woo went demon mode and killed player 67, and eventually unalived himself. All of these shenanigans would add 107 life sentences to the frontman's name. Let's now discuss the frontman. The fact that he murdered his own brother, Officer Hwang In-ho, is the one thing that truly bothers me. An undercover police officer named In-ho worked to reveal the game. In order to collect evidence and bring these villains to justice, he put his life in danger. How did his brother express gratitude to him? By throwing him down a cliff after shooting him.
나랑 가자. 형이 왜?
That is first-degree attempted family drama murder. He still gets a life sentence, and maybe he was being merciful by not fully murdering his own brother. Let's fast forward to season 2. As if operating a murder game wasn't enough, these criminals decided to take their illegal operations outside. For example, the crazy vehicle chases. When Seong Gi-hun was on a hunt to put an end to these heinous games, he ended up in the frontman's car. These weren't just Hollywood-style, high-speed pursuits. No, they were well-planned, potentially fatal stunts, with henchmen prepared to smash into automobiles or flip them over in order to keep their sinister secret safe. A long record of traffic violations would be added to the police's criminal file if they became engaged.
작전 시작하겠습니다. 뭡니까? 타이어가 터졌습니다. 열차 공격당했습니다.
Not to mention the stalking. Do you recall how they recruited needy people by sending those creepy invitations? Simply put, that is pressure and targeted harassment. People were being followed, intimidated, and prevented from living in peace. Aggravated harassment and intimidation is what that is. They are essentially collecting charges like they are trying to catch them all. For this entire fiasco, he gets another 17 years in Grand Royal Jail Hotel. The new Squid Game starts off again with red light, green light. This time, you would think it would go better as Gi-hun is literally snitching the frontman. However, the effect is ruined quickly by a bee, and this Thanos guy is helping a lot too. He is a vibe though. The first game ended up claiming 91 lives, so count it up. Although the frontman still made sure a lot of deaths occurred, he wasn't gonna risk it and switched sides and decided he would become this year's player 1. And now being a part of the game, next up was the pentathlon, a series of mini-games as a one-legged team. The pentathlon ended up claiming 7 of the teams. That's another 35 lives added to the sentence. Next is probably the craziest game of the season, Mingle. It's basically an advanced version of musical chairs where you have to enter a room with the named amount, and otherwise, you're a goner. The frontman decided he was not gonna lose at his own game, and even made sure when 3 entered the room, only 2 would come out. This mingling party cost the contestants another 134 lives. After that, while the girls were crying in the bathroom, the boys decided they needed an uneven number of players, and had another party, where sadly, the most hated beloved Thanos also lost his life. May he rise like a butterfly. That adds 5 more to the counter. But let's take a quick break from the contestants. As the detectives finally made it to the island, they were not given a warm welcome. The frontman's goons had set up a booby trap, which ended up costing another life. Setting up traps, however, is not legal and can give you another 6 months in jail. And owning the explosives for it in South Korea is another 10 years and 10 million won. And it even turned out the fisherman was an inside man and killed another one of the detective squad. And that brings us to the final crime on the list. In the final moments, the show of course ends in absolute madness. As the flashing lights are turned on, the final nightmare unfolds. The teams start killing each other again, but this time, instead of hiding in a corner, Gi-hun managed to eliminate the guards afterwards and overpowered them. Even the frontman himself is joining in and is literally shooting people in his own organization. The chaos unfolds and ends up costing 42 more lives across both sides of the games. And at last, the genius himself is revealed. Just like the previous player, 001, he ends his life with a gunshot sound effect. But who knows? Did the guards know it was him? Did he just shoot in the talkie-walkie? Did someone else shoot him? The least he could do after causing all of this chaos was to take responsibility for it. The charges for this crime would be fraud and obstruction of justice. Also, because it's not exactly morally acceptable to fake your death, let's add identity deception. Although as evidence is missing, this will be left to interpretation. After the players riot and try to overthrow the guards, things fall apart fast. Turns out charging unarmed at masked men with rifles isn't a great strategy. They lose. Badly. The ringleader, Gi-hun, gets sent back to the dorm in a coffin, still breathing, just deeply humiliated. Meanwhile, Hwang In-ho watches all this from his office like it's just a minor scheduling issue. Let's be clear, These people weren't there on vacation. They were drugged, abducted, and locked in a murder gem. Keeping them there after a failed rebellion, that's not security protocol. That's false imprisonment and kidnapping. For that, we're adding 4 years for the prison part and 7 for the kidnapping, because apparently escape attempts are just something he plans around. And this was just his response to a protest. Things only get worse from here. Captain Park gives the frontman a quick update. The crew searching for the island isn't giving up. They're getting another drone pilot and picking up where they left off. Reasonable concern, right? Not to Hwang In-ho. When asked what to do if things go south, his answer is short: kill them all. No hesitation, no follow-up questions. Just clean up the problem with bullets. That's not risk management, that's conspiracy to commit murder. He gave a direct order to premeditatedly wipe out an entire search crew, and for that, he earns a life sentence. Because when covering your tracks involves body bags, you're not protecting secrets, you're stacking charges. And with that, the quiet mask of humanity keeps cracking. As the players head out for the next game, they look up, and there it is. 8 corpses hung like decorations no one asked for. Not part of the rules, not part of the game, just part of the warning, apparently. The frontman ordered it, to make a point. A very dramatic, deeply illegal point. That's desecration of corpses. 8 bodies, 2 years each. That's 16 years in prison for treating human remains like motivational posters. And somehow, this still wasn't his worst idea. By the end of the game, the math is simple. Hundreds entered. 1 person leaves. The rest, dead, some at the hands of the guards, others by design, and plenty through rules that encouraged betrayal. All of it happened under the frontman's supervision. He wasn't just aware, he was managing the schedule. This is mass murder. Whether by direct order or structured neglect, the result is the same: large-scale loss of life for entertainment. And in any legal system with functioning ethics, that earns the death sentence. Still, his most personal crime was yet to come. As if the games weren't already enough, the frontman decides to give the VIPs a little bonus. He lets them suit up as guards and join the action firsthand. Not to observe, but to participate. While playing dress-up, one of them kills a contestant. Not a mistake, not an accident, just murder for sport. And who allowed it? The frontman. He opened the door, handed them the masks, and looked the other way. That's murder by delegation. 1 more life sentence. At this point, his job description might as well just say liable. When Namgyu realizes he dropped Thanos' necklace, the one with drugs inside, he tries to turn back. A guard stops him and hits him without hesitation. The players may not know who gave the order, but we do. The guards act under one chain of command, and at the top of it is the frontman. He may not have thrown the punch, but he set the rules and gave the silence that allowed it. That's assault, and he gets 1 year in prison for it. And for someone who claims to be just enforcing the system, he keeps leaving fingerprints all over the damage. After No-Eol rescues player 246 from the surgery room, the story starts to unravel. Too many bodies, too many questions. The frontman doesn't panic. He micromanages. He orders that one of the guards be monitored through hidden cameras. No warrant, no cause, just pure suspicion and surveillance. That's not security. That's stalking. 5 years in prison for watching your own employee like a true professional creep. And somehow, this wasn't even the worst use of cameras under his watch. After watching his best friend die and dozens of others fall around him, Gi-hun breaks. He wants to end it all. The response? The frontman orders him chained to a bed, not for care, not for safety, just to keep him alive long enough to suffer through the next game. While chained, player 146 visits and begs him to take care of player 222's baby. She's consumed with guilt over killing her own son. By morning, she's found hanging. Gi-hun was imprisoned. That's 4 more years for false imprisonment. Player 146 was driven to suicide under his watch. That's murder by proxy, 1 life sentence. And at this point, the game isn't the only thing that's broken. At one point, the game involves jumping rope and crossing a bridge. Sounds harmless, until you realize the rope is over a bottomless pit and the bridge is 1 slip away from sudden death. And who signed off on this architectural nightmare? The frontman. No permits, no safety measures, just vibes and a death wish. That's unauthorized construction, and in the real world, that comes with a hefty price tag. So we're adding a $250,000 fine to his record. Because if you're going to build a murder playground, at least get it inspected. And you might think he is going to stop here, but no. During that same bridge game, player 222 can't go on. Her injured ankle makes the jump impossible. So she hands her baby to Gi-hun, says her goodbyes, and jumps. She wasn't eliminated. She gave up because the game was designed to break her. And she wasn't the only one. Player after player fell trying to cross a bridge that never should have existed. The result? More bodies. More silence from the man in charge. This is mass murder again. No weapon in his hand, but every inch of that bridge leads back to him. Another death sentence added. And somehow he still had time for more personal betrayals. The frontman calls Gi-hun into his office. It's not a trap, surprisingly, it's worse. He sits him down, offers him a conversation, and then proposes a solution to all his problems by suggesting he quietly remove a few of the remaining contestants. The reasoning? They're a threat to the baby, so it's best to handle things early. And by handle, he means eliminate. He even provides a knife. Very thoughtful. This wasn't strategy. It was a very HR-unfriendly murder pitch. That's conspiracy to commit murder, which gets him another life sentence. And if handing out weapons wasn't enough, it is revealed he actually did what he is advising. At one point, the frontman has a flashback to his time as a player. It's touching, in a deeply concerning way. Oh Il-nam, in full owl mask mode, gives him a knife and a little pep talk. Something along the lines of, "Go commit murder, it builds character." And so he does. While the other players are fast asleep, the frontman strolls over and quietly kills them all. No noise, no mess, just a casual massacre. That's mass murder. Death sentence, again. And just when you think his villain era ended in the past, he brings the same energy into the present. No-Yul and player 246 escape using a motorboat. For a moment, it looks like they might actually make it. But no, No-Yul is forced to return because nothing says freedom like threats and psychological pressure. Back inside, she finds the frontman's little side project, an entire archive of personal files, names, histories, and probably blood types. Meanwhile, player 246 is chased by guards and shot at until he's out of ammo and options. So that's attempted murder. Life sentence. Also stalking, because building a secret folder on everyone you've ever met is weird, even by evil game show standards. That's 5 more years, and he's still not done. After wiping out nearly every contestant, the only ones left standing are Gi-hun and a literal baby. At that point, the game has officially stopped pretending to be entertainment and started resembling a psychological endurance test from hell. Out of options, Gi-hun gently sets the baby down and jumps off the platform, because apparently survival wasn't part of the prize package. Plenty of others had died in the same round too, because balance beams over pits of doom were apparently stage design. That's mass murder, another death sentence. He's collecting these like loyalty points, but don't worry, the frontman still had one final move. After the game ends and the police start poking around the island, he doesn't lawyer up or try to hide. No, he just blows the place to pieces. Full detonation. Goodbye island, goodbye evidence, goodbye plumbing. That's use of illegal explosives, so 5 years in prison. And blowing up a death arena before law enforcement arrives? Classic terrorism. Add another death sentence. At this point, he's not even running a game. He's speedrunning a criminal record. After leveling an entire island and stacking up a body count that would make history books nervous, the frontman decides to do a little follow-up work. He drops by a hotel room where Gi-hun's prize money from the previous game is just sitting there, neatly piled, untouched, probably traumatized. Naturally, he steals all of it. That's grand larceny. 25 years for breaking into a dead man's room and robbing his trauma pile. But wait, there's more. Apparently, he also runs a baby delivery service now. Later, Junho gets home and finds a baby in his house. Just there. No explanation. Just one confused infant along with an ATM full of money, like a very high-stakes Amazon package. Turns out it's player 222's baby, and it wasn't dropped off by accident. The frontman did it. And no, he is not the father. That's kidnapping. 7 years. Because while surprise pizza is great, surprise babies are a legal problem. And somehow, we're still not done. Still not satisfied with just murder, kidnapping, and arson, the frontman decides it's time for an international side quest. So he heads to Los Angeles because apparently customs is no match for a man in a long coat. Once there, he tracks down Gi-hun's daughter. Not by accident. He finds out exactly where she lives. Then he shows up, pretends to be someone who knew her father, and hands her a package marked with the same cheerful symbols from the murder games. Inside are Gi-hun's belongings. You know, just a nice gift from the guy indirectly responsible for her entire generational trauma. That's stalking, and we are giving him 5 years for that. Because flying to another country to hand-deliver grief is not considered closure. It's a felony. At the end, the frontman spots a familiar sight. Another recruiter playing the slapping game with a homeless man. He watches for a moment, says nothing, and drives away. As we finish up, the frontman's full list of crimes includes false imprisonment with 4 years, kidnapping with 14 years, assault with 1 year, stalking with 10 years, desecration of corpses with 16 years, conspiracy to commit murder with 3 life sentences, accessory to murder with 1 life sentence, attempted murder with 1 life sentence, grand larceny with 25 years, use of illegal explosives with 5 years, and terrorism with a death sentence. On top of that, 2 counts of mass murder earn him 2 more death sentences, and 1 case of murder by proxy adds another life sentence. In total, that's 5 life sentences, 3 death sentences, 61 years in prison, and no sign of early parole. This was all for the crimes of the frontman. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now.